Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Hard Count podcast. And today we got a little bit of a different video for you guys, and that is my top 10 quarterbacks midway through the NFL season. And just real quick before we start, I just want to remind you guys to subscribe and do whatever you want to do. I appreciate it very much. But let's get right into it with my honorable mentions, and those are two guys, Justin Herbert and Matthew Stafford. Very excited for Justin Herbert's future. And Matthew Stafford, he did drop down a little bit on my list, but that was a result of some guys moving up above him and him just not doing some of the things I saw him do last year quite at the same level. But both very good quarterbacks. Excited to see what they can do for the rest of the year. So let's get right into the top 10 with Joe Burrow at number 10, rookie quarterback. Another guy, we had Herbert at 10, and I got to go with Burrow over Herbert at the moment. He's been very, very good. Already, he's been remarkably accurate, reads defenses like a 10-year veteran, and I think he's somewhat of an underrated athlete. I think this is what we expected from Joe Burrow, maybe even more. This is, I think, best case scenario what we expected going into the year, because where he struggles, which is the deep ball throwing and stuff, that was an expected struggle. He does not have the most electric arm. He's not a guy that's just going to whip a ball into a tight window or throw the ball 50 yards down the field on a perfect touch pass. That's not what Joe Burrow does. He's one of the most accurate throws underneath, and we've seen that this year. And I think already he deserves to be in the top 10. Those things get him into the top 10. And, I did say the deep ball passing is a concern, but we've seen there's been other guys, Drew Brees, who's similar, Matt Ryan, who's similar, have had very successful careers playing the same way that Joe Burrow does. So I like Joe Burrow a lot. There is some limitations, I think, on his ceiling because of that lack of arm strength, but I think he's done enough to already earn himself a spot in the top 10. And yeah. All right, at number 9, we're going from one of the youngest quarterbacks in the NFL, one of the newest, to the oldest in Tom Brady, who preseason, I had him at number 15. And we know Brady is one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And if you just look at the production he's had in Tampa Bay this year, you might think, well, this guy is playing like the best quarterback in the NFL. But I said this at the start of the season, it's easy to look great when you're surrounded by great things, and those are definitely great things in Tampa Bay. Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, an offensive line that's kept him clean all year long. So Brady, he's looked great, but I think a lot of that, or some of it, definitely has to do with the fact that he's in a system that is just perfect at the moment. And Brady is kind of like a perfect Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a perfect system quarterback. He's going to squeeze everything out of an offense. That's what he does. And what I will say, last year I actually noticed a little bit of a decline in his short to intermediate passing accuracy, but this year it's kind of gone back up. He's been hitting a lot more of those throws, and also he's maintained what I thought was one of the most underrated parts of his game, which was deep touch passing. He's showed that this year in many circumstances. But, I think what separates, we're looking at all these guys in a list here, and I think what separates him is the fact that, he is not going to extend as much out of the system. As I said, he's going to squeeze every ounce out of it, but if we're looking at it in the bigger picture, he's not a guy that's going to be able to move out of the pocket, extend a play, like a lot of guys that are going to be able to as we get higher up on this list. Those guys that are going to be able to add 3 more layers to an offense. So I like Brady a lot. His arm is declining, but he definitely has some great pieces in his game, but he can't be much higher up on this list because I just look at what each guy brings to the table, and Brady falls here at number 9. At number 8, we have Ryan Tannehill, who was the surprise of last season, and he moves up 2 spots from where I had him preseason. And yes, Ryan Tannehill comes in above Brady, which if you told me that 2 years ago, I would not know what to say. But Ryan Tannehill, just another example of a guy coming out of Adam Gase's system and turning things completely around. I thought the only reason I was hesitant to move him up even higher in the preseason ranks was because of how much of an outlier season this past year was for Tennessee. But he's showing it's not really an outlier. He's played great this year, and he makes his Titans team legitimate title contenders. I compared Tom Brady to a perfect Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm looking at Ryan Tannehill as a much better Jared Goff, because Tannehill's a guy that loves the play action. He does a very good job in it, but I think Ryan Tannehill does a lot more, underratedly, a lot more to expand things, expand the offense, extend plays. He does all sorts of those things and is also pretty comfortable as just sitting back in the pocket, letting things come to him. But what I will say is that when things fall apart a little bit, he's not as good as some of the guys above him at, getting out of the pocket, making a tough throw on the run. So I think he is a little bit more reliant on the system than some of the guys above him, but he is still very, very good. And similar to Brady, he's going to get a lot out of the system. He's an underrated athlete, very, very accurate, and he makes the Titans Super Bowl contenders. So Ryan Tannehill at number 8. At number 7, we have Kyler Murray, who before the season, I had him at number 12. And some of you guys might be wanting him to be a little bit higher, and I kind of do too. I think, I've been surprisingly a little bit disappointed, which you wouldn't think is the case because he's moved up 5 spots here. But I'm looking at Kyler Murray as a guy that has some of the most talent in the NFL. I was expecting him to really show that all this year, but he hasn't quite. I think my biggest concern with Kyler is his inconsistency. We know he is one of the best athletes the NFL has ever seen at the quarterback position, up there with Lamar Jackson as the best athlete at quarterback in the NFL, and he's just such a natural thrower. His throwing motion is great. He's got a big-time arm, but he falls short in the fact that he doesn't do it every drive, every play. He's pretty inconsistent. I mean, some games we'll see him miss like everything. He misses every throw, and then some games he's impossible to stop. He hits everything. So I think Kyler Murray, the sky is the limit, but what I've seen this year is him not living quite up to that. And one thing I will say, I love Cliff Kingsbury as an offensive coordinator, but I don't know how much I love the fit with Kyler Murray. A lot of people have talked about how they love what Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury in that offense, but I'd like to see Cliff Kingsbury let Kyler Murray loose a little bit, let him throw the ball deep, do more of what he does best than trying to force him to be an underneath type of guy, which is what Cliff Kingsbury's offense centers around. But again, Kyler Murray, one of the most talented in the NFL, but I just have been a little bit disappointed this year. Some inconsistency, some accuracy issues here and there, but definitely a star young quarterback. He lands here at number 7. At number 6, we have Josh Allen, who definitely has been the biggest surprise on the list for me. He was 20 in my preseason rankings, and if I looked at this now at preseason, I would be like, oh my gosh, Josh Allen, a top 6 quarterback. But what were my criticisms last year? His deep ball throwing, how accurate he was on those deep balls, just his accuracy in general, and, making a couple dumb plays through the course of the game that sometimes cost the offense the game. So, I mean, we know that Josh Allen was a great athlete. We knew that he had one of the strongest arms in the league, and that is carried over to this year. That is still applies to everything. He is a tremendous athlete. He has a unique ability to just whip a ball into a window. It's just like crazy. I'm blown away by it sometimes. And his rushing ability is fantastic. Adds another layer to the offense. If you'll notice, I just talked about Kyler Murray. I'm talking about Josh Allen now. I love rushing quarterbacks because it adds a whole nother layer. And Josh Allen is one of those guys. But we knew that. And what really has shocked me is that the drastic improvement in accuracy and, it's been very impressive to me. I mean, we've seen him hitting much more throws this year, not having nearly as much variance in his accuracy. And that's what we've seen. And that's been very, very good for Josh Allen. And so I expect things to continue to improve for him. Diggs definitely helps it out. He gets to show off that deep ball throwing a little bit more. But there's a couple weaknesses still in his game. He does struggle a little bit more with touch passing down the field. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a Lamar Jackson situation with defenses. Not necessarily a bad thing, but we saw this with Lamar Jackson last year where defense would start to drop back guys, 7-8 guys, and force you to make a play, throw the ball. We're kind of seeing that with Josh Allen a little bit. Makes him a little bit uncomfortable. We saw that in the New England game. But huge improvements from Josh Allen. He's got the option to run, got one of the strongest arms in the NFL. I've been very impressed by what I've seen this year from Josh Allen. He lands here at number 6. Biggest mover up this year, for sure. At number 5, we have Lamar Jackson, who actually drops down a spot. But can people just stop the Lamar Jackson hate? he is just as good as he was last year, if not better. And I made a video, if you want to check that out, it's right here. It's about why Lamar Jackson is better than he was last year. Lamar Jackson, he's the same explosive runner, the same deep passer, the same playmaking quarterback as he was last year, but he added a new element to his game. Lamar Jackson has added the ability to more comfortably extend a play, roll out of the pocket, keep looking downfield, much more frequently hit a lot of tight window throws, and that's something that we didn't see nearly as much last year. In these types of situations, he would just put his head down, run the ball. But now he's rolling out, looking down the field, making a play, and that's something that a lot of my top guys share. And Lamar Jackson is evolving that part of his game as we continue to move through the season. But as I said, that adds to his game. It adds to the offense. And you know where it might just come in handy? The playoffs, where we've seen him struggle, where we're all looking forward to this year. Can the Ravens finally perform in the playoffs? And we know Lamar Jackson is an elite mobile quarterback, one of the best in the league, one of the best the league's ever seen, and that hasn't changed. And there's also a part of this game that I think is underrated. It's his deep ball, touch passing down the field, big time throw ability, and I wouldn't even mind seeing that a little bit more. I wouldn't even mind seeing him throwing it to the soldier, as Marquise Brown would call himself, a little bit more down the field, because that's a part of Lamar Jackson's game that he does very, very well. And big plays are a great thing to have in the NFL. So, last year, my biggest concern with Lamar Jackson was his intermediate throws. He was missing too many of them. I still think that is a little bit of a concern, but it is developing. He's hitting some more tight window throws as he's being forced to drop back and throw a little bit more. So, there are a couple things that I'm still looking out for with Lamar Jackson. As I just said, his intermediate throwing accuracy is still a little bit shaky, and his turnovers, his pocket presence, definitely a thing to keep an eye on. And as we just saw, Lamar Jackson lost that game, the Steelers game, because he turned the ball over. So definitely something to keep an eye on. I'm not too concerned about it with him, but you never want to turn the ball over, and if that becomes a concern, that's a big issue for Lamar Jackson. But Lamar Jackson, he completely makes defenses rethink how they play football. The Ravens offense is not quite as good as last year, but Lamar Jackson is even better. So he lands here at number 5. At number 4, we have Deshaun Watson. And I don't get it. Have people just forgotten about Deshaun Watson? He's an absolute stud. He was number 4 on my list last year. I think he's playing even better than he was last season. But his team only has 1 win. So, how can he be a good quarterback if his team only has 1 win, right? Well, quarterback wins is not a quarterback stat. It's a team stat. And Watson right now cannot overcome the dysfunction in Houston. Bad defense, firing their coach, getting rid of their number 1 receiver in DeAndre Hopkins, a bad offensive line. Give this man a break. He's playing at an elite level. He's a playmaker. He makes a lot of throws and plays that are just mind-boggling. He can flick a ball into a tight window from a very, very long distance, almost as well as anyone in the NFL. Very, very mobile. And I've said this, mobility, huge thing to me. Definitely adds a lot to the offense. And he brings that to the offense along with being one of the best elusive quarterbacks in the NFL. And so, my one thing with Watson is the occasional missing of some throws, as well as trying too much to make a play. And I think I forgot to mention this with Lamar Jackson, but Lamar Jackson, we've seen this a little bit too. Watson will continue to try and make something happen until it turns into a turnover or unnecessary sack. So I don't like that about Watson's game, but he is a big-time playmaker, arguably playing better than last year, and he's a special talent. He's going to continue to develop, and you cannot blame Houston's lack of success on him whatsoever. At number 3, we have Aaron Rodgers, who's made the jump from that second tier of quarterbacks into this top tier once again. Rodgers is playing like a vintage Aaron Rodgers. We know what makes him so special. He's the guy who makes so many of those plays that just leave you shocked, leave you gasping for air, because he just makes throws that seem absolutely impossible. And that's what we've seen from this year. And that is what Aaron Rodgers is. He's a big play guy. He's going to make uniquely difficult throws. And one of my concerns for Rodgers, the reason I'm at 5 last year, and the reason he wasn't in the top 3 like he is this year, is because he missed way more throws than I was expecting. going into the film, but he's now hitting more of those throws down the field and not missing nearly as many of those easy intermediate short throws like he did last year. And also another thing to notice is that he's an underrated athlete. And I think that is the thing. I think Aaron Rodgers is like Tom Brady with a much stronger arm and the ability to make plays when the play breaks down. That's a big thing for me. Aaron Rodgers, actually very mobile, used that to escape the pocket. And you can't ignore the rushing ability with Aaron Rodgers either. He's fantastic. But when have we seen him struggle a little bit more, when he plays some better defenses that get him under some consistent pressure? And, most guys do struggle with that. But when we're deciphering these top guys, and I think what keeps Rodgers here at 3 is those top 2 guys are better at when they're under pressure, and they can do a lot of the similar things that Aaron Rodgers can do. But he moves up here to number 3 because he has been playing great football right now. He's making all those Aaron Rodgers type throws, and he flicks the ball downfield like almost nobody else in history. At number 2, we have Russell Wilson. He lands here at number 2, and I think that this is the MVP of the league right now. He's fantastic. He makes plays all around the field. He can perform in any circumstance. It's third down, red zone, clean pocket, under pressure. Russell Wilson's your guy. He's going to get the job done. And we can finally see him be unleashed this year. We're seeing his full potential. Let Russ cook, as a lot of people are saying. Pete Carroll's finally letting him do it. And look what happens when you put Russell Wilson together with a decent offensive line, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You got one of the best offenses in the NFL. Wilson, he's, I said this in my preseason quarterback rankings as well. He's not uniquely good at anything. Like, he's not as athletic, mobile as Lamar Jackson, Kyler Murray, or he's not, as big of an arm as, say, Aaron Rodgers or Josh Allen, but he's top 5 across the board in everything. Very, very good quarterback, clean at moving between reads, no issue continuing to play, moving out of the pocket, one of the special talents in the NFL. There's not too much separating him and the number 1 guy, and I think we all knew who that is at this point. It is Patrick Mahomes. And controversial? It shouldn't be. I know a lot of people may be rushing to put Russell Wilson as the best quarterback in the NFL, but not to me. Patrick Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the NFL. And I think what separates the two for me is that there's a couple of games through the course of the game that Mahomes makes that I just don't think Wilson is quite capable of. And, he's Wilson, but just a little more freakily athletic. He's spectacular. The things he brings to an offense are ridiculous. And he makes some ridiculous plays regularly. He's like Aaron Rodgers, but just, again, more freakily athletic. And people take Mahomes for granted or pass off some of what he does as being part of a stacked offense. And he's a result of the offense, which it's true. Kansas City is stacked, but the offense couldn't be nearly what it is without Mahomes. Some of the plays he makes regularly cannot be made by anyone else in the NFL. He's got the combination of athleticism, accuracy, and Mahomes is everything you could want in a quarterback in this day and age. Arm strength, arm talent off the charts. He throws rockets at weird angles, and he doesn't have like Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray mobility, but he doesn't need to. He's still one of the more mobile quarterbacks in the NFL, and with Patrick Mahomes, you can't sell out to stop him from running the ball like you can a little bit more with Lamar Jackson and Kyler Murray. Because if you do, he's going to light you up in the air better than anyone else in the NFL. If you sell out to stop the big plays, he's going to run for that extra 10 yards, pick up an easy first down. He's accurate. It's Patrick Mahomes. He's the ultimate weapon in an offense right now. He's exponentially increasing how good he is. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the NFL. All right. Well, those were my top 10 quarterbacks midway through the season. Comment your thoughts down below. Maybe comment your list. Thank you guys so much for listening. Into Sports just made a video. We both made our midseason top 10 quarterbacks, so go check that out. Link will be in the description. But yeah, until next time, peace.